Thank you so much for spending an hour with us here on a beautiful Friday morning. And we're here with the BC government to focus on how to apply for the temporary layoff variance process. With only 2 weeks until the application deadline, employees and employers who need to extend temporary layoffs beyond the August 30th expiry date are entering a critical phase to meet deadlines. And we heard from BC's Labour Minister yesterday on this topic in the media. Businesses requiring an extension should apply for a variance using the Employment Standards Branch's new online streamlined application by August 25th. And you're going to hear more about that very shortly. And if you don't know about the Surrey Board of Trade, we are Surrey's city-building business organization, making Surrey an opportunity city, where we support business and bring business into the city. We're a membership-based business organization, and Surrey is going to be the largest city in British Columbia very soon. Check out our diversified service portfolio to help support business and bring business into the city at www.businessinsurrey.com. And now, let me turn it over to our presenters from the BC government, Assistant Deputy Minister Deneen Leduc and Assistant Director of Project Manager Rebecca Johnston. And also joining us is BC's Deputy Minister Trevor Hughes. And before they speak, if you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A function of the Zoom technology, and we will get to them right after their presentation. And so over to you.
Great, Anita, thank you for that welcome. You did a fabulous job summarizing exactly what this is about and the urgency with respect to timelines. I'm Trevor Hughes, Deputy Minister of Labour. Thank you very much. Rebecca and Deneen are here from my ministry and will do the bulk of the presentation for you today. I just wanted to do a very quick introduction to set the context, but as I say, Anita has done a wonderful job of doing exactly what, setting out exactly what this is all about. I want to thank all of you for participating in terms of helping to drive out the message about the timelines, about the process, about how straightforward and easy it is to use, but also about how important it is for employers to be able to use this process to maintain a connection with their skilled and valued workforce who built their business to the point of its success prior to the pandemic. And so this presentation is to help you with your own workforce, but also to help drive out the message to employers about how to keep connection to their valued workforce going forward with the uncertainty of the pandemic. So with that, I'd like to please turn it over to Deneen, who will take you through a deck before Roberta takes you through a bit of the demo. So again, thank you very much. And Deneen, over to you.
Great, thank you, Trevor. So Rebecca, if you could just advance the slide. So thanks, everyone. We really appreciate the opportunity to chat today and bring this to your attention. I mean, everybody knows there was a global pandemic that struck us in March. And when that happened, businesses had no choice. They had to temporarily lay off their staff. And then as the pandemic lasted longer and longer, those layoffs extended. And the provisions of the Employment Standards Act began to apply. So for once those temporary layoffs have been 13 weeks out of 20, the statute would normally terminate that employment relationship between the employer and the employee. And so the government enacted a regulation, a COVID-19 emergency layoff period. And that had the effect of extending those 13 weeks to 16 weeks. And then they did a second extension to 24 weeks out of 28 weeks. And that's the extension that we're now getting near to. That extension will end August the 30th. So if employers have staff on a COVID-19 emergency layoff and they're not going to be able to bring them back to the workplace before August 30th, they absolutely need a variance to maintain that connection with their skilled, trained workforce that they've already invested in, and action needs to be taken quickly. So today we're going to talk to you about what that looks like. So this is for non-unionized employers to apply for the variance process. For unionized workplaces, it's a different model. Typically, they'll have a collective agreement that will have around layoff and recall, and the collective bargaining process is how they address changes to that relationship. So this is for non-unionized employers. Next slide. So economic restart is underway, and we know that businesses are working really hard to reopen safely and provide their services again. But we also know that not everybody has been able to recall all of their staff. Sometimes it's due to social distancing requirements or other safety protocols. So we know there are still staff on temporary layoff for some businesses. Now, both Trevor and Anita did a fantastic job of flagging that importance of the employer-employee relationship. If it is severed, then employers are losing their ability to quickly restart using those staff that understand their business, those staff they've already trained and have a relationship with their customers perhaps. And so that relationship, if severed, will and bring an entitlement for staff potentially to receive compensation for length of service or severance, as we commonly discuss it. So in order to really support businesses, we want to make sure they understand that if they don't take action and obtain a variance for any of the staff they still have on temporary layoff, there's an entitlement to compensation for length of service that will come due after the August 30th date. And so it's really important that businesses take action now, and we'll talk a little bit about the timelines associated with it and what those steps really need to look like. Next slide. So what we've established is a very straightforward two-step process to help employers and workers go through this process together and obtain a variance. So the first step for employers is to survey their workforce, and that's the workforce of impacted workers, so the people who are still on temporary layoff. And we've created a tool to make that as easy as possible. There's a template that we'll show you a little bit later in the presentation. And in that template tool is all of the information an employer needs to provide to their workforce when they want one of these variances. And one of the pieces of information in that template that you, the employer, has to decide is when are you reasonably going to be able to recall your staff who are currently on temporary layoff. Now, we know that times are very uncertain, and employers might feel like they actually don't know what that date is. So you do have to choose a date that you think you might reasonably be able to recall your staff. And if it happens that you pick a date, let's say October 31st, and that date comes and you still haven't been able to recall all of your staff on temporary layoff, there will be a streamlined variance renewal process in place that you'll be able to go through in order to seek a further extension. So in other words, you don't have to perfectly correctly pick that recall date, but you must choose a date and communicate that date to your employees in order to support the variance application. And one of the most important pieces of information that we will be seeking from the employees is to confirm that that date that you told them is in fact the date that they were told. And so that's going to be an important piece for them. The first step is survey your workforce. And one of the number one reasons that variance applications have been challenged in the past is that workers were not providing their informed consent. They didn't have a good mechanism to do that. So we've built a tool that will support both workers and employers. When the employer sends out that survey, the worker, included in that survey is a link to the Employment Standards Branch website. And on that website, there's a stream just for workers. And in that stream, there's a tool where they can vote and indicate whether they support the variance application or they don't. And if they do, they fill in some information, and it allows them to create a very easy PDF, they click, and send that to their employer. And so what the employer receives is employee-informed consent, so that they understand what the scope of the variance is for, and they support it. And so once employers have that information from their employees, those responses, they need to have a majority of support from their impacted workers. So we're slightly more than 50%. Once you have that, then it will show you the application form that employers fill out. It's quick, takes about 15 minutes, and we'll walk you through that today. And there's a spot within that form for you to securely and safely upload those responses you get from your employees to the Employment Standards Branch directly to show that they support the variance application. And we've talked today really is about deadline awareness. I want to make sure that everybody understands in order to receive a decision from the Employment Standards Branch before that August 30th date, it's imperative that employers provide their application by August the 25th. So 2 weeks out, and just a reminder that that's really important to get the decision in a timely way. So we wanted to flag within the Employment Standards Act, there's really no distinction between permanent and seasonal employees, but except for one area, and that's when it comes to entitlement for compensation for length of service or severance. So we wanted to highlight for you that if your employees fall within either of these two exceptions, they may not trigger that entitlement for compensation for length of service, as long as it's carefully documented. So a definite term employee is someone who has a very set start and end date. We see this quite often in the tourism sector or when people are hiring for seasonal influxes of work. One of the requirements is that there's a clear new period of employment each season. You can't simply roll staff over year after year. There needs to be a clear start and end date, season after season. One of the other exceptions is specific work. So this is if you hire someone to do a specific job, a specific role within 12 months. And so those are two exceptions that may not trigger compensation for length of service if your workforce falls within those definitions. Next slide. So what does this mean for employers? What this process allows you to do is extend that temporary layoff period with the consent and support of a majority of your impacted workforce, and not trigger the obligation to pay severance when you're very busy restarting safely and working hard to get your businesses open and operational again. And it also is a vehicle and a really flexible tool to help employers and workers stay connected. So it's really important for workers to stay connected to their workforce or their workplace because they have benefits that accrue to them as part of being an employee, and it also supports their ability in some cases to apply for federal benefits. So that is a really important connection for employees to have, and of course it's also important for employers because you've invested in those people and they understand your business and they can help you restart quickly when you're ready and to safely restart. So there's no cost to go through the variance process. It does take a little bit of time on the employer's side, and most of the time is in the survey. It takes some time to survey your employees and give them, summer, it takes some time for them to respond. We found most employers have been able to get responses within 3 or 4 days. The larger your workforce, perhaps the longer that piece will take, so you'll need to make sure you leave yourself enough time to do that survey. When government has extended the temporary layoff periods before, those two previous occasions, they were extending it for a period of weeks. What this variance tool provides is a very flexible way for employers and employees to actually extend that temporary layoff period for months if needed. Employers are encouraged to ask for the length of time that they need to reasonably recall their staff, and then the Director of Employment Standards will review the application, and if there's questions or more information needed, they'll of course contact the contact person for the application. So one of the things we've learned as part of the COVID-19 pandemic is the need to work together. And I want to make it very clear that these variance applications, while the employer chooses the recall date and the employer does the survey and fills out the form, they very much are joint because they require the support of a majority of the impacted workers. One of the questions we often get from employers is, well, what if I survey my workforce and I don't get 50+%? And so one of the things that we're going to show you on the tool is that you can identify if you're seeking a variance for all of your employees, if you're seeking a variance for employees just by work function, so for example, all of your security staff, or all of your front counter staff, or all of your kitchen staff. So there's an ability, based on the responses you get, to focus the variance on the people that are supportive of it, so that at least those people you can continue to maintain a relationship and support your quick restart. Next slide. So we've put quite a few process supports in place to help employers and workers go through this process. While we've built it largely as an online process, and we'll walk you through that process here very shortly, I did want to flag that for some people that's just not going to be comfortable or easy for them to do, and so there's in-person support available as well. All of the Service BC offices across the province are available for walk-in support for employers and workers. And those services are broad. They can help you fill in the form. They can fill in the form electronically for you. They can help you upload documents or do it for you. And there's also a completely paper-based process as well, if that's more comfortable for employers. Just a reminder though, the timing is getting tight, so if you are thinking that the paper-based process is going to be for you, we recommend you go into a Service BC office quickly so that they can get that process done and delivered to us at the branch to start processing. There's multilingual support, live, simultaneous, toll-free access to translators in over 140 languages. It's quite quick. The hours of the phone line are Monday to Friday, 7:30 in the morning till 5. And that service can actually help translate the form if people need help with that, and can answer any of the questions they have, and transfer the translator with you into the Employment Standards branch if you have a more technical question. So this process has really been designed to be as flexible as possible for workers and employers. And the most important thing is the date, the recall date that the employer chooses and communicates to workers. And that has to be something that you can reasonably support. Next slide. So now we're going to show you some of the online tools. We've got our main landing page, COVID layoff site at the top. And that's where you'll go, and we'll show you there's 2 streams of information. One stream for employers with all of the forms and information you need, and one stream for workers with all of the forms and tools that they're going to need. Well, the form is available online, of course. It's also available in paper form through Service BC. And if you have any questions, of course, you can email any of us on this presentation, and also the Variance at gov.bc website. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Project Management, Rebecca Johnston, and she's going to take you through the online form and show you the web properties and the tools. Rebecca?
Perfect. I'm unmuted. Great. Thanks, Deneen. Okay, so I'm showing the screen here. This is the landing page on our website, so that you can give you a summary about what the COVID temporary layoffs are. And as you can see here, it's reiterating a lot of the message that Deneen has just shared with you. What we wanted to do was really find ways to make this as easy as possible. And the focus for this, first, we'll take a look at, for employers, what the channel would be that you would follow. And this is the employer area. So I'm going to go on to into this flow. So what this takes you to is asking the question, do you qualify? And providing an overview of the temporary layoff related to COVID, the details there, as well as benefits for the employer and what the employee benefits would be. We wanted to break it down into additional steps right from the beginning into the end of the process, so that it was it completely covered all of the information that you might need to know. The first step being informing the employees of the intention to apply. And as Deneen mentioned, more than 50% of the affected employees must approve the decision. And then it is about the employer documenting the support from their employees. And what we've done is we've actually created a sample email that can be downloaded by employers to fill out and customize specifically for your business. And I'm going to just show that that template to you. So what we've done here is this can be modified. So everything that you see in yellow, you can update it specifically for your business and insert the date that your employees were laid off. Also ensuring that you insert the date in which you are planning to recall your employees. So modifying all of this specifically for your needs, and then you would be able to send this communication out to your employees. What we also did so that, oh, sorry, Deneen, were you going to say something?
We can't see it. Have you cracked it open? Because no one can see that on the screen.
Oh, my apologies. Okay. One moment. Sorry, I should have checked here to make sure you guys could see it. Can everybody see it now, Deneen? Okay, so here we go. This is actually the template to the email to the employees. And as I was mentioning, the places in which you can modify this template to specifically your information, but not having to write the letter from scratch, which can be helpful. And then it just gives some additional description around what a variance is for the employees, so they have a full understanding of what the details are, and also making sure that you specify what it is that you're applying for. So that's the template form here. And again, we really want to reiterate the date that you are planning to recall the employees, letting them know what that date is. And then we will also be asking that question when you submit your application as to what date you communicated to your employees. So I'm going to take this and I'm actually going to go back to, can you see my screen again, Deneen?
No, it's still on the template email.
Okay. Okay, one moment here. I'm going to bring it back. There we go. Okay. So that is the download email. And what we also have here is once you've received all of your support from your employees, then you can submit your online application. And there is an ability to apply right here. So once you've collected your support, you can come back and actually submit the application. And once you've completed your submission, you will receive a notice from the Employment Standards Branch confirming that the application has been received. And once you've received the decision from the branch, we are in hopes that you will communicate to your employees by email what the outcome of that decision is for them. So I'm just going to go into the next step where I'm going to apply for the temporary layoff, and I suspect you are not able to see this. So one moment, I'm just going to do a quick shift here. And Deneen, are you able to see that?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So now once we're here at this stage, it assumes that you've received your more than 51% of employee support in writing. And so what this is doing here is we're going to just give you a bit of a summary showing you all of the information we're going to be asking for before throughout the application. So just giving you a bit of a checklist to make sure you've got what you need. And I'm going to step through this quite quickly. And I'm going to enter my information that I'm going to honestly answer throughout the application. I do understand that if all the information is not provided, it may delay processing my application. I'm going to be using a private computer, and that is related to security as to why we're asking that question. The sections of the Act that we're requesting to vary are specifically around temporary layoff. And where is the business registered? A nice feature that we added into this process was the ability to have your business auto-populate from the BC registry for businesses. So if I select corporation, as we step through the process, we're going to actually be able to have that auto-populate. I am going to, it's just searching right now for my business. And as you can see there, it auto-populates your BC registry number. And I'm just going to use the fields that are mandatory for expediency. We do ask the question, is the business subject to insolvency proceeding? And I'm going to say no. However, if you say yes, we do ask for some additional details. We also have the address to be filled out. There we go. And we're going to save it and continue. So I'm just going to quickly step through each of these pieces. Oop. And Okay. And the application shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. It's actually quite quick, obviously depending on how large the size of your business, and potentially also how many work locations you may have. In our example here, I'm just going to add one location, but you do have the ability to add as many business locations as you need to include in the process. And you also have the ability to edit or modify your work address, the work locations. And I'm just going to save that and continue. And as you can see here, it just summarizes at the end of each step so that you understand and see what you've added. I'm going to save that. I'm going to continue. And this is the final stage where we do ask some specific questions. The first question being, is this application that is described, does it help preserve your operations? In most cases, the answer would be yes. Why is the variance required? We've provided a few examples so that it is more expedient. The phase 4 is part of, or cannot open until phase 4 is in play. And then here's that question that we brought up earlier in the presentation about what is the recall date communicated to your employees. So I'm going to indicate October 26th. It is the same date that I would have indicated in my letter that I provided to my employees. We also asked the question, how many employees are affected by this application? Let's say there's 10 employees affected, and how many employees consent? I'm going to say only 7 consented. However, that does meet my more than 51% threshold to be able to apply, which is great. This particular application is for all employees. So those are all of my staff. Now, oh, sorry, Janine, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you show them the employees with a specific job title, what that looks like as well, because that may be relevant for many employers.
Okay. So specific named employees, and then there's also employees with a specific job title or duties. So as you can see here, we just ask for the additional information to describe that, and then that will be included in the application. And then you have the ability, you can either upload, multiple Word documents. So if you have individual supports indicated, or for some employers, they would prefer to upload an Excel spreadsheet and include it in a larger format. So those options are available here for you to do that. And our final question is, what industries do the affected employees work in? These are the industry categories. And we will say accommodation and food services. And I'm going to save it and continue. Sorry, things are a little bit slow here. So it would be just collating the information, and it's going to take us to a summary page. And the summary page will just show us everything that we filled out in its entirety. And then and then I would just go through each of those things and certify that the information is correct. Once that certification has completed, the application will send you a confirmed application received, as well as indicating what the next steps are. So you will be contacted by the Employment Standards Branch. So my apologies, I'm not quite sure. This delay has not processed yet here. Just give me a moment.
I don't think you've got any uploaded documents.
Oh, I see. You know what I did wrong? Haha, I actually didn't fill this field out. So there was I actually changed my approach, so my apologies. I'm just putting in, I should have just indicated this is a mandatory field. And so I should have filled that out, and that's why it was not letting me proceed. So I'm going to just save that and continue. And there we go. So we can see that everything has been completed. I can also have the opportunity to go back and make adjustments if required. And what you can see here is what I spoke of before, the final review before you submit your application. I can edit if I realize I've made a mistake somewhere. I can also ensure that I certify each piece of information, that it's accurate. And I'm just stepping through that. And then what we can do here is you can see the summary of what I filled out. And there's some final pieces here. Please confirm the following, so that the information in the application is true and correct, that if there's any false information, it may result in a cancellation or refusal. Also, that the majority of the employees have been made aware of the effect and have consented to the application. And our final statement is that that to ensure the compliance with Employment Standards Act, the employees may be contacted to confirm their understanding. So with that, I'm going to submit my application. And what we have here is just a summary of the application. I can print this page, but also an email will be sent to the email provided and identification of what's next. As you see here, you can also contact the Variance email address or the toll-free number if you have any questions at all. And I'll hand it back to you. Thanks, Deneen. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you very much, Rebecca. And actually, we're at the end of the presentation now, and we're at the question and answer period, so I'm going to turn it over to Anita.
Thank you very much. We do have one question in the Q&A. If anyone does have any questions, please type it in the Q&A function of the Zoom technology. So the first question, and whoever wants to respond, just let me know. We're a travel agency and needed our staff for the first few months to rebook and get clients from home. So with the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy funding, we kept them on staff and laid them off for later. If our 24 weeks isn't up for a couple of months, can we apply for the extension at a later date?
So in order to answer that question, we need to know when the people were laid off. If they were laid off after June the 1st, then the ordinary provisions of the Employment Standards Act will apply. So that's 13 weeks out of 20. So this deadline for August 30th only applies if they're on a temporary layoff that's COVID-19 related. And it doesn't sound like from your questioner that they're actually passed within that time frame. It sounds like they're after the June.
Julie, did you want to clarify that at all?
Sorry, so yeah, they were laid off post-June, probably end of June, in order, we had to keep them on staff.
Right, so in that case, Julie, then you're part of the 13 weeks out of 20, and you need to track those weeks under the Employment Standards Act. And once you get near those 13 weeks in 20 consecutive weeks, you would need to apply for a variance. But you're not actually captured by this August 30th deadline.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? You can type your question in or raise your hand and I can allow you to talk. So it looks like the BC government has made it too simple now. But what we'll do is we'll send this out also to the rest of our membership and via social media with your permission. And because this was a last minute session for us. And pending no other questions, last call. Any final remarks, Trevor?
Well, I really appreciate the Surrey Board of Trade's interest in this and your reach out to your members to allow us to have this session. By all means, if there are follow-up questions or queries or unique circumstances for particular members, please get them to us. We've got the email addresses specifically. There's the variance at gov.bc.ca email. There are no dumb questions. There is a lot of uncertainty here. We've tried to clear it up with some of the process and what Deneen and Rebecca took you through, and the design of the online process being quite a bit different than the old paper-based system it used to be. And we recognize that these are tough times and challenging times. We're trying to do everything we can within the parameters within which we're allowed to operate to try to assist employers maintain operations and certainly maintain their connection to the workforce that they've trained up and that's built their business. So to the extent that your members have questions or queries before the 25th, please send them along. Don't be shy. We are here to help, and we look forward to any opportunity to engage with you and your members on this other issues in the future. So Anita, Jess, Roop, thank you so much for allowing us to have this opportunity. And again, thanks to my team, Rebecca and Deneen have been phenomenal all the way through at answering the questions, designing the online portal, and making sure that it runs smoothly. So thanks to all of you.
Thank you so much, Trevor. And we do have one more question, actually, if you can just allow me to ask you. We're going to rehire staff for a 12-hour week who used to be working for us for 24 weeks. Is this considered rehiring?
So I think we're going to need a little more context. That might be one where they should email us on, just because there's a few other pieces of information that might be important for nailing that down. So I think that one, there's a little more nuance to that one. So maybe they could just email us directly and we'll respond.
Yeah.
Or Uli, do you just want to clarify that while we have you?
Yeah, well, it's because we are not really open yet, but we do need them to work a little bit from home until we reopen. But the reopening will most likely happen to end of September, so past the August 30th deadline. We don't need them to come back for the 24 hours per week, but we do need them for about 12 hours. So we are just wondering if that would still be considered as a layoff.
So are they on the temporary layoff right now? Were they laid off before June 1st?
Yes, they were, yeah.
Yes. So in that circumstance, I would suggest a variance and surveying your workforce and communicating with them the piece about the changed hours. And I still recommend that you actually have a conversation with another employment standards branch expert present, because there again might be a couple more pieces of information that will make a difference to your next steps.
I think that's critical, because it may be that the workers, depending on their circumstances, argue that the terms that you're imposing they haven't agreed to, and that it could constitute, where it constitutes a layoff or some form of constructive dismissal. You really should get some advice about the circumstances, because it isn't just about whether the temporary layoff process applies here. It may be about whether there are terms and conditions that they have not consented to, and so you really do need to get that advice. So Deneen is absolutely right. You should go to the 1-800 number for the employment standards branch, and depending on the complexities, you may also want to avail yourself of some legal advice. This is one of the challenges that employers are struggling with. We've seen examples in the hotel sector where employers are saying to folks, hey, we can't bring you back full time. How do you feel about coming back as a casual or an auxiliary, depending on your notion of what that means? So I really would encourage you to get some advice and not rely on what we're telling you here for that specific scenario, so that you get expose yourself to liability unexpectedly.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend and make it a great business day.